Welcome to the Cables to Clouds podcast, your one-stop shop for all things hybrid and multi-cloud networking. Now, here are your hosts, Tim, Chris, and Alex.
Hello, welcome back to another fortnightly episode of our fortnightly news segment with Cables to Clouds. So thank you for joining us for another week of your your fortnightly dose of cloud news provided by our lovely crew here. Before we get started today, I do have a bittersweet announcement that we need to make about the future of the show. So today's episode will actually be Alex Perkins' last episode with us today. He's got some other key competing priorities in his life that I will let him speak about. So he's going to step back from the show for a little bit. So Alex, it's been a wonderful ride since we've asked you to join the show a little over a year ago now. So can't thank you enough, first and foremost, before we get into the show. But man, I'll toss it to you. Anything you want to say?
Yeah, appreciate it, Chris. I'll keep this pretty short. As Chris kind of alluded to, I just have a lot of competing priorities. Work. I got 2 teenage boys, a wife. I started going to college full time this year. That's really what has been taking up a ridiculous amount of my time. So I just need to get back some of my time, my own personal time. So that was really the main driver here. Obviously I just want to thank you guys. I think, we've become really good friends over this last year and a half or so. Chris, when you brought up this idea, I wasn't even sure that I was going to join the podcast. So I can obviously say that I'm very glad I did. And I appreciate everything we've accomplished together. And thank you to any listeners, anybody that's reached out to us over this time or met me in a conference or something or a meetup somewhere. Just really appreciate the community we've built and the friendship I've developed with you two as well. So thanks.
Yeah, 100%. Obviously the relationships are the biggest thing from all of this for us, right? The community.
Absolutely.
So Alex is still going to be around. I'm sure we can probably
I'll be on X or Twitter. I'll be on one of those platforms for you guys.
Well, I was going to say, I'm sure we could probably get you to join an episode from time to time.
He's like, whoa, slow down.
Yeah, no, I'll still be around.
You can join it. Hey, you can even edit it if you want. I'm just kidding. No, we won't make him do that anymore. But so that being said, if you do see a dip in the editing quality of the show from here on out, I do apologize. That's Tim and I's learning curve.
Come on.
But so that's so the show will continue on. Tim and I still plan on running this at the same cadence right now. We haven't decided if we're going to bring on another host at a later time or not. We'll keep going for now with just the two of us, and we'll still be releasing on a weekly basis. So we said before the show, before we hit record, that one thing we're really going to miss is explaining things to Alex, like pop culture references that he does,
especially pop culture.
Yeah. So it's when I say that, I'm not saying that I need to explain everything to Alex, but if it has to do with pop culture, there's a good chance
you do.
Absolutely, you need to. Yeah.
So I'm disappointed that I'm going to be able to how I don't know, like some shitty movie from the 80s, and Tim's going to know what I'm talking about, and I don't have to explain it, but that's how things go. All right. With that, let's hop into the news episode. So first up, we have a pretty big announcement from AWS. So we have a couple articles here, one from about Amazon.com, which is, if you're unfamiliar, it's a site that pretty much just posts all Amazon and AWS-based news. So there was an article that came out, or an announcement that was a message that was shared by Andy Jassy to basically all the employees of Amazon. It was a very long-winded post about, where things are, where they want to go, et cetera, when they need to, get back to innovating and things like that. And he targeted that there was two main things that they wanted to do. One being developing the right org structure to drive the level of ownership and speed that they desire, and evaluating whether or not they're set up to to invent, collaborate, and be connected to each other, to deliver the best, absolute best for the customers and the business. So the first point that they addressed was all about the kind of balancing the number of managers to individual contributors. And they said they are going to change that up by, I think it was like 15%, like increasing the ratio of ICs to managers by 15%. And then, slowly beyond that, got into the second point and dropped this major bomb that apparently for all of Amazon, there's going to be a mandatory return to office order. And this is not only for Amazon, but for AWS as well. And yeah, this is, I've already seen quite a bit of people on LinkedIn talking about this. It's really ruffling some feathers. And, I think with COVID and things like that, people have come to this being the new normal and have this new level of productivity and new level of comfort of being at home, taking care of kids. There's a lot of things that you're able to do working from home. And it's, I think I've always been a fan of the hybrid approach, maybe a couple days in, a couple days out type thing. But this seems like a major change for a lot of people. And I wonder what's going to happen to their workforce. So I'll stop there and see if you guys have any additional comments.
Yeah, I mean, I think the workforce is going to be decimated, honestly. This goes into effect, I think, January 1st, 2025.
Yeah, January. Yep.
Maybe decimated is a strong word, but there's going to be a very large portion of the workforce that has probably already started looking for new jobs. Lots of very talented people that now I'm sure their competition is going to be more than happy to allow to work remotely or much more hybrid than not hybrid at all, than 5 days a week in the office. One of the things he kept harping on in the message was kind of just going back to how things were before COVID. But that was 2019. Okay. It is.
Yeah. 5 years ago.
Yeah. So, I mean, I get what he's saying, but there are people who have entered the workforce since then that this is all they've known. Like we're in a completely new generation of workers and workforce. And it's weird to see a 5 day in the office mandate. If it was some kind of split or something, like a gradual go back to this, I would more understand, but just straight up 5 days just seems crazy. And like you hear a lot of people saying, oh, this is like a veiled kind of layoff. And maybe there's some truth to that, but this is so much more than that. Like the amount of people they're going to lose is probably more than even if they did a above average kind of targeted layoff. So that's all I think about it.
So yeah, so there's a couple things. One is now AWS, and I haven't looked at AWS's like footprint, like realty footprint, right? But we know that a lot of cities give tax breaks to corporations to attract them to relocate headquarters or some office or whatever. Raleigh did it with Apple, and Amazon's got a distribution center down in Gardner, so on and so forth. Part of that social contract, if you will, that point of getting the lower taxes up front from a corporation is that they're going to bring in a ton of people. They're going to bring in a ton of people to work and live in the city, and also to essentially bring business to the businesses around where those headquarters are. Right. That's part of the reason why why cities do this. It's a huge reason. Austin is a first example. Like Austin has absolutely exploded because of this reason. So what happened when, we got COVID and everything, and then most people became either hybrid or fully remote, is a lot of these cities started looking at their tax revenues and saying, actually, we're not making money, right? Like the business that should have come with the tax breaks isn't happening. So I think part of it is just straight up municipalities are like, look, you're not holding up your end of the bargain. You need to bring people in. The other thing is, I think veiled, not even really veiled. Like it's a pretty, to me, it's a pretty clear attempt to do a layoff without having the optics of a layoff. You said decimated might be a strong word, but I mean, technically, if you use the Latin term, decimated is 10%. So, like
decimated fits.
To me, that doesn't seem wrong at all, right? And there's so much tied up in there that needs to be thought about. Like you said, there are people who have taken jobs that were remote jobs first and built their life because of that. They built their life a certain way, or they needed that to be remote in order to live their life a certain way. And now they're just being told, oh, well, like, change everything about your lifestyle or else go find another job. And of course the market's not awesome in tech right now anyway. So I am curious and I am hopeful that there's what you said, that there's a lot of top talent that will be able to jump over, but there's going to be a lot of not necessarily top talent that won't necessarily be able to jump anywhere else because the market just sucks right now. And also I think a lot of people, I think a lot of big corporations are paying attention to this and asking themselves, what comes, can we do the same thing? And so this needs to be, this actually needs to be a big bloody lip for AWS, but will it? I don't know. I hope so.
I think they're too big to know for a while, at least.
Yeah. We included something in the news page as well, which is a piece from a columnist, Cass Cooper at CRN, about just responding to this. And one thing that she calls out that I think is very prudent is, the messaging is talking about, having, work-life balance, but this really calls for almost no balance at all. There's kind of the opposite of a focus on balance. Now, I mean, obviously this is for all of Amazon. So it's much bigger than just AWS, but I do wonder how much of this was also related to AWS not being the forerunner in the AI competitive market as well, right? It focuses on their whether or not they're able to invent and innovate as fast as they can to provide the best for their customers. We've been talking about this for months, that, AWS seems to be lagging behind a little bit. Not that they're not in the forefront, but they are lagging behind the other major players. And I wonder if they see that as like, now's the time, we got to get people, in the office collaborating. I don't know. I'm just speculating, just something that came to the top of my mind, but it's like I said, it's Amazon as a whole. So I wonder how much of a contributing factor that could be. But yeah, I think you're right, Tim. I think this is kind of this is going to be the poster child for, can other companies do this? And I hope it turns out to not be that way. I hope there's enough of an uproar that they maybe adopt maybe like a 3 days in, 2 days out, or somewhere in that the hybrid model, right? Rather than the full 5-day RTO. But like you said, while people aren't going to probably jump ship immediately, I feel like there's going to be a lot of long quitting involved with this, right? Like people are going to be searching for a long time, which that could even have a negative effect on the innovation in itself, right? If you have 10 to 15% of your top talent looking for jobs, how committed are they really going to be to their current one, right? I think the fallout could be pretty rough from this.
Not to mention also, like, the market already sucks. So now you're going to have even more top talent looking for the few jobs that are out there. Like, it's just a mess all around.
Yeah. I mean, and I want to see the data. Show me the data that says 5 days in office is a better outcome for innovation than a remote workforce, because it doesn't exist. That data does not exist. That is entirely somebody in a boardroom just saying it is. Just saying, oh, well, logically it makes sense. If you get people together, they can, do this better than remotely. But I want to see some actual data that shows that if you're going to do this much of a heavy lift and up in this many people's lives, you should have some fucking data to back your shit up.
Yeah. I mean, as someone that's been doing remote work for far longer than when COVID came around. I think I've been remote for close to 9-10 years at this point. I do see value in a hybrid environment when possible. Like if you could do some in, some out, like I see value in that. But I'm also in that camp where like, I think it was even in the CRN article, that the term of an introverted extrovert, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I do like being recluse when I need to be, but then I also want to be, collaborative and talking to people and meeting people and things like that. And sometimes you get some of these hallway conversations that really do spark things that are outside the box. So I do see the value in it being a bit here and a bit there, but the full 5-day RTO, I call bullshit on that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm an extrovert, so like me coming home and working from home was actually really hard on me the first year. I've gotten better at it now, of course. I just know how there's other ways to engage with people. And I do agree that there is some amount of value in putting people together that probably would not otherwise interact. But none of this is impossible. I'm with you, hybrid, like 2 days in the office, 3 days at home, or the opposite would be fine. So people could still live their life for the most part. But going full 5 days RTO, it makes no sense.
Yeah, hybrid's the answer to everything.
It really is. Future's hybrid.
And we meant that in more ways than one. All right. We've beat that one to death. Let's move on. So this one, man, we were going to record the new show 2 days ago, but we luckily had to punt it for some technical difficulties. And this dropped in that time, which I will say, we can't say too much here because this is all speculative at this point. But evidently Qualcomm has made public an intention to take over Intel, which would be quite nuts. I feel like every time we have I feel like every other news show we're like, oh, this is nuts, this is crazy. Like this is just another one of those iterations, I would say, if it does happen. But I mean, Intel's obviously been struggling the last few months. We've seen the share price, kind of roller coaster, dropping quite a bit. They're struggling in this realm of AI and things like that. So I'm not exactly surprised, I guess I should say, but man, this would be pretty crazy. How do you guys feel?
Well, so I was listening to the Silicon Angle podcast. I don't know if you guys know what that is, but Dave Vellante does amazing job at breaking down all kinds of things. Highly recommended to just keep up with the industry in general. But they were talking about this exact thing. And I guess I feel like I remember this, but I don't remember the details. But I guess a few years ago, Intel was actually putting in a bid to buy Qualcomm. So it's funny how the tables have turned.
How the turntables.
Yeah, exactly. But the crazy part of this is part of Intel's CEO, Pat Gelsinger, who was at Intel, went to VMware, came back to Intel. He wants to spin out the chip making business arm of Intel. So that makes me really curious. Like, I don't think Qualcomm wants to buy the chip making part of Intel, but I could see why they would buy the other part. So I feel like over the next couple of weeks, you're going to see a lot more details about who wants to buy Intel, who wants to do what, and how they're going to split up their company. But it's very interesting to watch how all this is playing out. Intel, was so big for so long, and if you don't move fast enough, things will happen.
Well, isn't part of the reason they're absolutely tanking is because they had their new chip was absolute garbage? Like it had huge problems with the calculations or something, or was the manufacturing? I forget what it was. That was like one of the big reason that they crashed.
Yeah, they had lots of problems with this last generation. Yeah.
I mean, shit, the first PC I ever built, I want to say I put an Intel chip in it because AMD was the trash at that time, was the trash chip at that time. And this was over 20 years ago, right? So, shit. Also, I'm thinking about it, and I haven't done enough research on this clearly, but if you took if you spun out the chip making part of Intel, what's left that's making money? Like, what is that not the bulk of Intel's actual IP or revenue generating like material?
I'd have to look into this a lot more to figure out the exact details.
I'm curious,
but
yeah.
It's more like there's a manufacturing arm and then there's like everything else. Like they call it, it's an actual foundry, like that makes the chips, like a fab. Compared to like the company that's doing all the research, designing
the R&D elements and all of that business.
Right.
Yeah, the IP, if you
that's
will.
the stuff that would be valuable for Qualcomm.
That
making the chips is completely separate.
Anybody could do that.
Right.
Qualcomm
not anybody could do it.
Well, not anybody, but Qualcomm could do it.
Anybody can make a chip.
Right. Yeah. Anyway, I just yesterday I mined some rocks and turned it into a chip.
Watch one of the hyperscalers buy in the chip making portion of Intel instead.
Oh, there you
That'd
go.
be interesting.
Yeah, okay.
That would be interesting.
To be determined. We'll see.
Yeah. All right. Let's jump into. I just wanted to throw this one in here. So a while back we talked about Frontier, the ISP, MSP, whatever you want to call them. This is I don't remember the exact date. I looked this up and I forgot to get the date, but we talked about how Frontier was the first kind of ISP to provide Nile, which is the network as a service company, on basically as a service, like a NAS as a yeah, exactly, Nile as a service. And we had talked about how Frontier is big into providing like full service networking for businesses. So we thought this was like a really interesting angle. But now Verizon is going to acquire Frontier. And I've read through not just the article we have in the notes, but I've read through a couple other ones. Not once is it mentioned anything about Frontier's business part of their organization. This is all about Verizon gaining more fiber networks and more customers. That's it. So there goes that whole new approach that Nile had, because I don't remember anybody else announcing something like that besides Frontier. So.
Well, so that's just curious. So they're buying the whole kit and caboodle is what you're saying, right? They want what they want is the miles and miles of fiber and the current customer base and just the footprint they already have, obviously. But of course they'll inherit the commercial business part of that as well.
Yeah.
I wonder, that's a fair question. I wonder if Nile looks at this as actually maybe an opportunity to step up. Like, hey, well, now Verizon could offer us as a service. It's an interesting. I got some friends over at Nile. I'm kind of curious now to reach out and see how they feel about this.
Yeah, because this says so. Frontier has 2.2 million subscribers. Verizon has 7.4 million. So it could be a huge win for Nile, or it could be they just lost access to all of this.
Well. So Frontier, they bought Roadrunner, right? They were the ones that bought Roadrunner, or was it Spectrum? And like there's in the Southeast, the cable wars, if you will, have been just like legendary, right? There's been so many times that companies have changed hands down here. It's hard to keep up with anymore. But I want to say at one point Frontier was big here in like the Southeast, for example, and they owned or acquired other companies. It might not have been Roadrunner, maybe Spectrum, or Spectrum bought Roadrunner. I don't remember, but it was like it's a big deal.
I mean, also, but that's the thing too, is we talked about that Frontier and Nile partnership. What was it? Not even 4 or 5 months ago, maybe.
Oh, I think it's been longer than that.
You think
I think it's been within the last half a year.
Okay.
Yeah, within the last 6 months, probably. Yeah, that's probably true.
But that's the thing. I don't know how much time it's had to bake, and how many customers they have using that product as of yet. Not to say it's zero. I'm sure it's not zero. But
no, actually we're way off. It was in January.
Oh shit. Okay.
Oh wow. It's been like
the end of January.
So like 8 months, 9 months now.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, and so I'd be worried. I'd be curious how much of a business driver that has been for Nile as a whole, and how it looks moving into the Verizon world. I'm sure no one knows anything at this point. It's all kind of hurry up and wait. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
Cool. All right. This was a surprising one as well. So I just want to throw this in here. NVIDIA has joined the Ultra Ethernet Consortium, or consortium, however you say that. I mean, if anybody follows these industries, you know that NVIDIA basically owns InfiniBand. And there's always been kind of a war between InfiniBand and Ethernet. So this is a strange move on the surface. This article is by Futurium. And they're just pointing out, like, NVIDIA didn't announce this. The Ultra Ethernet Consortium didn't really say anything about this. And they got one spokesperson from NVIDIA that said this isn't necessarily a sign that they're moving away from InfiniBand. It's more like they're just kind of hedging their bets because they have products that do both. And they're excited about the innovation that could come from Ethernet. The only thing I wanted to call out on the Ultra Ethernet Consortium page, they have steering members and then general members. NVIDIA is not a steering member; they are just a general member.
Okay, so yeah, you're like you said, they're not heavily invested, at least at this point.
They're kind of just supporting it in the background, if you will. So, what do you guys think about this one?
No, I mean, it makes sense. That's the thing. I obviously have no real intel as to what it takes to contribute from an R&D perspective to both of these kind of not necessarily standards, but kind of products managing this high performance networking as a whole. But I mean, obviously NVIDIA is doing very well right now. Probably fully worth it for them to just kind of be like, hey, if we can kind of keep this on the truck in some capacity, let's just keep going. And, when we need it, we'll pull it out. But if not, then, we'll stick with InfiniBand, which we know is doing great. But I mean, that's my rub on it anyway. I don't know. They probably are just like, yeah, why not?
Reminds me of like corporations that, contribute to both the Democrats and the Republicans.
Very timely.
Yeah, I don't have much to add here. I think it's 100% just hey, let's just stay on the truck, stay in the arena type of thing.
Keep our name in people's mouths, right?
Right, and just get access to whatever you get access to from being a member of the UEC, right? Like just so they can keep on the knowing about it. But I don't see them moving their main, AI networking workloads type stuff to Ethernet at any time soon. All right, let's move on. So from actually, hold on. I just realized that this link does not actually have a source. I believe this is a press release from Oracle, though. Hang on one second.
Yeah, it's from Oracle.
It is. It's from Oracle, right? So a new strategic partnership has been announced between Oracle and AWS. And it's really interesting to see how Oracle has kind of taken the fact that it's like fourth place and kind of decided what to do about that. So the new strategic partnership here is basically Oracle databases running on dedicated AWS hardware. So think of like a marketplace offering of like Oracle databases, like the legit Oracle supported and all of that, the real deal, but running on specifically some AWS hardware that's been set aside essentially, so customers can't use it, I guess. So that's how they're getting into AWS. Like, not just, hey, you should connect to us, connect your AWS workloads to Oracle and come here and consume our databases. Now they're actually saying to AWS, like, hey, let's partner on this, and you can offer our database as a service in AWS on AWS hardware, and then just, I guess, just pay us a royalty or a marketplace fee, or they'll just charge on the marketplace. So this is a little different than some of the other strategic moves that Oracle has made. Like Oracle has, for example, they have like a backend link between Azure and themselves. I forget what they called it, but that was announced over a year ago. And then, of course, now you've seen that Microsoft is paying Oracle to run OpenAI workloads for them, like dedicated compute for them. So Oracle has really taken this idea that like, hey, we're fourth to the game, so we have to get real creative to be part of this market. And honestly, they're doing some really crazy shit. I don't know. What do you guys think about this?
Yeah, I mean, you already called it out. I think the really interesting part about here is the Oracle databases running on AWS hardware. So that tells me right there, it's not running in OCI. So, I mean, maybe this is my, dumb brain at work here, but this sounds more like an Oracle offering with AWS than it does an OCI offering with AWS. Like we've talked about before, Azure and things like that, they're all talking about like, oh, we build dedicated connectivity so that you can run your workloads on OCI and have dedicated connectivity, whether it be like, ExpressRoute or like the private link service. I don't know what they're using under the hood. This just sounds like you're running an Oracle database in AWS through the marketplace. Therefore, it's almost like they're an ISV or an independent software vendor. Like they focus on this being a zero ETL integration. So those unfamiliar with ETL is extract, transform, and load. So basically the data, it can natively be put into things like AWS analytics services and things like that, which is like I don't know what I'm failing to see here, but like this doesn't sound like OCI is in the picture, or it doesn't have to be picture whatsoever. So that's why I'm kind of confused by this, and maybe I should pull a little bit more out of it. But I mean, even if they were to go on to say like, oh, well, you can use OCI for this and use AWS for this. This just sounds like people could use it without OCI at all. So I'm wondering what's going to stop customers from doing that.
I mean, I have the same takeaway, and it's weird because I don't know what to read into. Like some places there, it's hard because Oracle and OCI aren't really there. There's no way to ever like distinguish, what's different. Like you have Microsoft and then you have Azure, you have Amazon and then you have AWS, but Oracle is just the same word for, is it OCI or is it Oracle? But yeah, I agree. This is just, I mean, Oracle has always made money off of licensing for database stuff. So for them, this is nothing new. It's just another source of revenue. And who cares if it's not directly tied into OCI? They're still making money either way. But yeah, the craziest part to me is that they got Matt Garman on stage at Cloud World, the Oracle Cloud World conference, because we've talked about this before, but AWS wouldn't even acknowledge other clouds existed for years. And I think it was last year, the last reInvent 2023 is where they actually kind of started talking about other clouds. So man, how things have changed quickly.
Yeah. This this press release, by the way, doesn't do much to explain. In fact, it muddies the waters quite a bit because it mentions OCI several times in the press release, but not how OCI has anything to do with this. This is really just Oracle selling Oracle product in the AWS marketplace in AWS, running on AWS hardware. There's no back-end connectivity to OCI. So I don't know. This is just, to me, this is just Oracle selling its product on AWS.
Yeah, it just sounds like the same old game.
All right. So this next article is pretty interesting. And I think anyone who's listened to the show for a while could have seen this coming, or anybody who's just paying attention to Gen AI at all could see this coming. There's an article from cloudcomputingnews.net saying Gen AI proliferation threatens global emissions targets. So basically the absolutely insane amount of power and resources drawn to power Gen AI is just eating through energy, like to the point where, these global emissions targets that we were all trying to hit to stop global warming have just been forgotten, ignored. They're getting blown through, and there's no sign that that's going to change. And so I think we really need to have there needs to be kind of a, I don't know what you would call it, like a just come together moment where we figure out some efficiencies to be done with this. And I realize, technology in its infancy is never efficient. Like look at the Industrial Revolution, for example, look at the internal combustion engine. But this is on a scale that is like dwarfing things that we've done up until now. And we don't have, it's like we're on the wrong end of the resource game to be playing this game, right? So I don't know. What do you guys think about this article?
Well, I mean, ever since cloud took off, there's been a mad dash to build out so many data centers. I used to live pretty close to Ashburn, Virginia, which is like, they say 80% of the world's or at least the US's internet traffic goes through those locations. And I lived there for 5 years. and regularly drove through there, and you would just see data centers being built. Like every single month, you'd see a giant new data center being built. And that was just when the cloud was getting big. So I haven't lived there since AI started taking off, but my gosh, I can only imagine how much even worse it's going to be. And you keep hearing about like these new locations that companies are finding to build out more data centers. I mean, Tim, you're right. Like, I don't know how this is sustainable. I would say this is a great time to be an energy startup.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, but that's, so we've also had discussions about how the ROIs with Gen AI aren't quite there yet. So I wonder if the exponential, scale we were predicting, maybe it's not going to grow that fast, but that doesn't negate the point of the article here. But that's the thing, is like, we know this isn't going to stop. So is the only option offsetting here? Like, carbon credits and things like that. I mean, I don't really know how that shit works, but it's like, well, what do people say? It's like, oh, well, we planted this many trees for this many things that we put out to like offset all the emissions and things like that. I don't know. It could be bullshit, but that's how people, pretty much say that they went to be, an emissionless company. Right.
Right.
That's the thing. But does that also change, which I think, Alex, you and I were talking about this over the weekend. Does that change the pricing model for how things are consumed from an AI perspective? Like, does OpenAI increase their price to $50 a month just so they can fund the rest of the shit that they need to offset, right? To contribute towards zero emissions or whatever. I'm not smart enough to know how to do this stuff, but that's what it seems like the only resolution is to me.
I mean, at some point, if this continues to grow, like, enough people will start being impacted, right? Because the energy is there's a finite amount of energy. So wherever you build these data centers, there's a finite amount of energy. And so
just ask Texas a few years ago.
ERCOT. Yeah. But like, at some point, the government itself will have to get involved if these guys don't take care of it themselves, just to protect the energy needs, resource needs of the citizens. Like it just can't keep growing at this pace. So,
yeah, I mean, like a couple of years ago, maybe even just like 1 year ago, there was a lot of talk about people trying to figure out solutions to modernizing the electrical grid. And it's like all those conversations have just stopped. And I know that AI is not making it better. So I'm really worried, like, what is going to happen? And why aren't there people still talking about this? Why aren't policies being created to future proof? Because this is not going to stop. And yeah, Chris, like, there's definitely some merit to what we were talking about, about raising the prices. But it's like right now, all these AI companies are just in a race to get like the most adoption. So until that slows down, it's not even possible for them to start charging more, because they want as many people as they can,
right,
to get the value out of it, and then they'll scale back.
And just giving money to AI companies by raising the prices doesn't solve the problem, unless those AI companies are turning around and solving the emissions and energy problems with that money, right? So, which they'll never do on their own. They'll never do that on their own.
I think the hope there, though, is, and maybe this is naive, but the hope is, like, if you price it high enough, less people will use it. But I don't know. That doesn't even sound, when I say that out loud, it doesn't even sound feasible. So I don't know.
Yeah. Like I said, I mean, it's absolutely fine to raise your prices to cover because that's all companies do, right? Is whenever there's a new regulation or something that needs to be covered, they'll just raise their prices, pass that on to the consumer, and then keep pocketing their money. But until there's some reason that forces them to actually do good with that money for the amount of resources they're burning, you're just adding to the problem, because then now it's a gold rush, like, in addition to everything else. It's always been a gold rush, though. I don't know, man.
All right. And with that, I think we are going to go ahead and wrap it up for today. So, as always, if you wanted to check out any of these articles that we talked about today, we published them into a fortnightly cloud news document that's in the show notes. So it's on a Google Doc somewhere. So look at the show notes if you want to read any of those. And then please engage with us if you have any feedback, any comments, if you found anything interesting, if you think there's something we really got wrong or you want to offer some additional perspective, we'd love to hear from you. So reach out to us on social media, email at cablestoclouds@gmail.com, comment on YouTube, anywhere you feel appropriate. TikTok even would be fine. And with that, I just want to send one last heartfelt thank you to Alex. So thanks for going on this ride with us for the last year and a half, Alex. It's been great having you. Really appreciate it. Sad to see you go, but I completely understand, and we will make sure to always kind of keep you in the foreground. So we might pull you in from time to time whenever you're available, because we always love to have you and have your commentary. So with that, I will bid farewell. And everyone, reach out to Alex as well on social media. Just tell him how much you love him. He would love to hear that. So
I will be around for sure.
Sounds good. All right, with that, we'll take it away, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
Hi everyone, it's Tim, and this has been the Cables to Clouds podcast. Thanks for tuning in today. If you enjoyed our show, please subscribe to us in your favorite podcast catcher, as well as subscribe and turn on notifications for our YouTube channel to be notified of all our new episodes. Follow us on socials at Cables2Clouds. You can also visit our website for all the show notes at cables2clouds.com. Thanks again for listening, and see you next time.